Well, welcome, Kartini. It's wonderful to get to speak with you today.
It's lovely
For
to
the
get to talk to you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, for those of you tuning in, this is Kartini Thomas, and we have an online feature with Kartini's work this um, coming several weeks, and I'm excited to get to spend this time. You're all the way in France, so coordinating this was fun with a 9 hour difference, and
Mhm.
um, yeah, I think what we've been starting with, and what I would love to hear and learn more about from you is kind of what got you going. You know, where you I think first were inspired in the arts or clay, and how you got started,
Mhm.
and what that journey has been like to get to where you are today.
Mhm.
So yeah, what got you going, Cartini?
Well, a lot of really random circumstances. Um, I was in biology before. I studied biology in Portland at Reed,
Yeah.
and and I went on a trip to France and was drinking a beer with some friends and was asked if you could do anything, what would you do right now? And the fact that I was traveling kind of freed me up to other possibilities. And and so I thought, well, I guess I'd like to take some art classes. And so a short 3 month trip to France ended up being a really long one where I tried out for the art school in Paris and got in, and then ended up staying 5 years in Paris. And I didn't study ceramics at all in art school. I studied video and set design, um, and went on to work as an art director and a set designer for lots of different projects. Lots of hands-on manual work, but um, many years later, a friend of mine came back from Japan and brought back this kind of plastic toy with him. And it was like this crazy Japanese monster with one big eye on the top, and its limbs were covered with other little eyes. And he gave this toy to somebody else. And I was so jealous that I just decided I was going to make my own toys, and got some Fimo and then got some clay and started messing around. Um, and then got totally hooked on ceramics. Um, and now I work in a shared studio space. There are 23 of us in this wonderful big collective studio. And we share a kiln, and there are a couple other people doing ceramics. We have lots of different craftspeople in the
Mhm.
building. And so I've just kept going, and I'm completely addicted now, and decided to just make it my life about 5 years ago. Just let everything else go, and decided to become a ceramicist. And
That's,
the rest is history.
that is awesome. What year were you in Portland, or years?
I finished Reed in 1996.
Okay.
Mm.
I'm sure you can imagine, but have you been back at all?
I have, yeah. I actually,
When?
my grandmother, who is 103 years old,
Oh my goodness.
still lives in Portland, so I go back and see her when I can. I obviously haven't recently because of COVID, but
Sure, sure.
hi,
So you've
Grandma.
been able to, so you've been able to see all the changes at Portland. I'm
Yeah.
imagining like how much
Oh,
especially the last 4 or 5 years, it's grown
oh,
so much. It's been,
yeah.
gosh, the last 3 years feel like just even around the gallery, we've seen 5, 6 high rises been built just on the same street.
No, it's
Um,
incredible. Yeah.
so when you started playing with the creating the characters, the ones after you were inspired by the toy that came back from Japan, was your approach, did you start creating it and then it kind of identifies like a personality, or did you have sort of a character in mind? I'm curious to see kind of your approach in a direction that way.
Um, well, I guess as a former biologist, I really love the thing that I love about these Japanese kind of kaiju toys. It's like the in Godzilla, for example, they're forces of nature, and so they're creatures that come from nature, but have somehow been transformed through nuclear reactions or other things. And so I really love this idea of nature taking over and becoming something monstrous, but not necessarily evil. They're kind of halfway between evil and benevolent.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
um, I love that idea. And also just all when you look at these toys, they have amazing colors and textures. And I love playing with that and trying to get get clay to become the forms that I have in my head, and using, oxides and glazes and things to create the colors that I
Hmm.
imagine,
Yeah.
which is tricky with clay. I mean, it's such a
Yeah. Yeah, and especially with some of your color palettes are, leaning when you work with like bright colors, it can be tricky to get kind of what you're wanting.
yeah.
Um, well, you mentioned the space you are working in. Tell us more about your role. As I understand it, you co-founded this space. So um, tell us what you co-founded. Tell us
Yeah. Well,
this community you've created.
3 years ago, this wonderful space became available within Toulouse city limits. So Toulouse is not a huge city, but it's a pretty neat
Roughly, yeah, like roughly how big of it, just to get just a ballpark scale, is it like?
I'm really terrible with population statistics. I'd
That's
say
okay.
it's slightly smaller than Portland.
Smaller than Portland. Okay, okay, but not like I don't know, half of Portland, maybe. I don't know. Would you say, or not even that big? It's okay if you. It's okay. I don't know.
I
I'm
think it's
terrible
the
too.
fourth largest city in France. So
Okay,
yeah,
yeah. So that's substantial, I would assume.
yeah. So
Being naive to not knowing what the populations in the other three cities would be, but yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's a city. There are a lot of interesting things going on, and it's mostly, well, the big industry in Toulouse is Airbus,
Okay.
so equivalent of Boeing,
Yeah.
in France. And so it's sometimes a bit of a challenge to get creative projects going.
Hmm.
The government in Toulouse isn't particularly supportive of creative projects. Um, so when this space became available, the owner asked if I wanted to do something with it, and it was this wonderful old sewing factory that had metal floors and the electric rails in the ceilings to plug the sewing machines into, and it had this
Yeah.
wonderful character. And so with two of my friends, we decided to take the challenge and take the space, rent it out, and find other people to share it with us. And so we created a nonprofit called Life on Mars,
Okay.
to run the space. And now, 3 years later, we have 23 people in the space of many different creative disciplines. We've got writers, artisans, lots of different crafts people, designers, graphic designers, lots of stuff going on.
So logistically, did you kind of pre-divide up the space or did it that kind of organically happen as, for example, a writer needs a different maybe size space or type of space than a sculptor?
Yeah, it was very organic. It
Okay.
happened exactly like that, because some people just need a desk with a computer,
Yeah.
and other people like me tend to kind of take
Spread
over.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
spread out. Um, so now we have a special space that's devoted to just crafts people. So we have a bit more space each, and shared materials and shared machines, and also a place to show our work and to do little classes if we want to offer classes to people in the city. So it's
Great.
become a real interesting and kind of electric space. There are a lot of things going on.
Yeah, no, that's great that you can bring the community in to the space. When I was when we were speaking earlier, I was telling you about our space, and the way we're able to function that way is because we're kind of a private space, and the way
Mhm.
that I'm able to keep kind of rent cheap, and which is really hard to do in Portland. So
Yeah.
that was our solution, was it was just sort of a private space for more of the professional artists, but it doesn't serve the wide range of community that maybe your space is
Mhm.
able to serve when you can actually open the doors um, to the public or bring them in to teach or
Mhm.
show. I mean, we do like a. Have you guys done like I don't know what we do like a holiday sale where we then invite the public in, but it's more like we're showcasing. Each of us showcase what we do.
Yeah, yeah, we have markets,
Okay.
and different sales and open door days, and we also once a year put on a collective show where we choose a theme together, which involves a lot of brainstorming and lots of glasses of wine. And
Yeah.
we choose a theme, and then we create kind of multidisciplinary work groups. So each group will create an installation. And that kind of helps us all to get out of our comfort zones and do things that have nothing to do with our daily practice. And so that's once a year. We haven't gotten to do it this year, obviously, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, no,
Oh, go ahead.
it's a lovely space. It's not particularly accessible from the street, so we have to work to build up communication with the public, and do a lot of marketing so that people will come in and find us and come to our shows.
Gotcha. Meaning like there's just not like what big doors in the front that would be obvious, or
Yeah, well, we're on a little side street rather than being on a main street.
okay, so you'd have to know to go down the street
Yeah, but
to kind of find it.
we're working on our
Yeah.
sign and also our notoriety in the neighborhood. So
Yeah.
getting
I
there.
mean, more and more, I feel like for us, it's been the virtual imprint, footprint has been so valuable. When we started Eutectic, it's kind of funny because we started Eutectic following our other company, Mudshark, in the space. So, the first and foremost, we needed this big warehouse space, but it was not where all the other galleries were. And I don't know how your city's growing, but the way that Portland's grown is, some of these entities have been pushed out from the epicenter from downtown. So now, 5, almost 10 years later, we're closer to, we're still off the beaten path, and you kind of have to know we're like a destination spot. But it's kind of funny how the city's evolved that way, where once we were way outsider, and now we're like, oh, we're not, being on 20th Street is not so far from downtown anymore as it was, 8 years ago.
Right, but you have parking.
We do. We got some parking. Yeah. So that's a thing. I guess that's a selling point. And do you have any, you had mentioned too earlier, there is exhibition space in it's Espace Éclair? Espace Éclair?
Espace Éclair, yeah.
Espace Éclair.
Yes, we have an upstairs and a downstairs, and so each space is quite different. Downstairs, it's more craftspeople, and we have a big new area that will be used for exhibits. And upstairs, it's more of a chic office area, so that can be used for tidier tidier shows.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of possibility. We've got 2 floors in this lovely big industrial building, and with time we've gotten to be well known in the neighborhood. So
Yeah.
lots of possibilities.
So by having those, by having these events, you're drawing out the public, you're getting people to show up.
Yeah, and people, I'm realizing before and after COVID, people are really interested in kind of breaking out of their daily lives and coming to see something different, and also to see a studio space, see how we work, and kind of look on our desks and see the mess and see all the little tools that we use, and they're really fascinated with it. So these are often people who work in offices all day and just really love to come and see us and talk with us about our work. So now that we have even more space to open up to the public, I think we're going to invite a lot more people in.
That's great. Yeah, that's one of the things I really, when we had our doors open, really valued about the gallery was it's 20th Street for us is like a lot of people drive by going somewhere during the weekdays, so Monday through Friday they're going to or from work, they're running an errand, and they see us, but they're like, what is, someday I'll stop there kind of thing. And then a lot of times on a Saturday, they'll just pop in and be like, what is this place, and discover us, or they'll be walking and then they'll just be, I almost have to wave people in. They'll be peering in the windows, inquisitive eyes, and I'm like, you're allowed to come in, come in and look around. But I love those sort of moments of, it's like in the neighborhood, like this discovery that people have with a space. It sounds a little similar to what you guys have going on. Well, let's talk about your current work, that what you're showing with us, Could you give me a little bit of background on how that, you know, what inspires that work? And yeah, let's start with maybe that, and then we can move into other components of the work. But
Okay, well, when I started working with clay, I was really interested in making toys,
hmm
and the idea of being playful and curious and kind of like a mad scientist has stuck with me. And so these new sculptures don't really look like monsters anymore, but they're inspired by lots of different modular toys that I go to garage sales a lot and buy old toys from the 50s or 60s, 70s, 80s. And like there was a wonderful set of Zolo toys from the Memphis group
hmm
that they developed that was also sold in art museums, but they're just these wonderful, colorful shapes that you can put together to make your own sculptures. Um, and so I wanted to really play with that and use my kind of organic biological shapes and create kind of interactive sculptures. So I've created bases and lots of little accessories in porcelain that can be plugged in to make your own shape and sculpture. So they can evolve and you can change them depending on the space that they're in, and get other extra little accessories the next season to kind of shake it up and change it up. And so it's a real invitation to kind of interact with the artwork
hmm
and giggle a bit and maybe be fascinated by the colors and textures and just really enjoy interacting with it.
That's awesome. And I feel like that's gosh, yeah, there's like a designer mentality to that, with thinking of the viewer as interactive too, that I think a lot of artists aren't necessarily um, kind of living in that realm. That's great.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoy making them, and I laugh a lot when I mean, I do a lot of giggling in my
Yeah.
studio, and I kind of wanted to bring that feeling to the people who see my sculptures as well.
Yeah, yeah. Or I mean, obviously, if you're living with it, then if you're interacting and changing things, that's a good way to, yeah, yeah, control the environment, or yeah,
Mhm.
um,
Equally.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, what sort of, to just get a little technical with you, what kind of clay do you use? What are you firing to? What, you know, just for a lot of us in the States, just not having, you know, an awareness of what materials you might be using in France.
Okay. Well, I'm using stoneware, often grog stoneware for the bases, so I can build them
Okay.
up into quite tall shapes, which I cover in a porcelain slip afterwards to
Oh,
give
okay.
that nice white background and apply slips and oxides to them after the first firing.
Yep.
Um, so underglazes, anything that'll give me a nice bright color.
hmm
Um,
hmm
so I often apply a really nice bright underglaze and then do another firing with a glaze on top of it in a similar color, so I can do a lot of layering. And some
hmm
of the pieces go through like 10 firings just so I can get lots of layers.
Wow. Okay.
Um, Sometimes there are interesting interactions between the glazes and the slips, and a bit of bubbling or just lovely texture happening.
Yeah.
And then for the smaller accessories, I often work in porcelain,
Okay.
just to get that lovely translucent
Yeah.
quality. And also they take color so much better than
Yes. The
stoneware.
pure canvas.
Yeah, yeah. And so I'm not firing super high. I do it to about 1,240 degrees, which is cone 6, I think. I mean,
Okay.
it's not super high because I love using reds and pinks, and they often disappear just 10 degrees higher. I'm talking in centigrade.
Yes.
um,
Yes.
just 10 degrees higher can make a huge change in the color.
Yeah.
So the blues get kind of grayer and the pinks disappear completely any higher than that. So it's a real balance between getting that nice translucent porcelain and having colors that pop.
Yep. Awesome.
Oh, but
Now
I just
going.
discovered some I feel like this is going to change my life, but I just discovered some grogged porcelain, um,
Ah,
that I'm going to start making larger structures with. So that's
playing
exciting
with that.
news for me.
The grog you use, does it feel actually really gritty, or is it kind of a fine grog?
It's a
Is
fine
it
grog. It's a
okay?
fine grog,
Yeah,
and it doesn't really show once the piece is fired, but it really helps to build higher and have less cracking.
yeah, yeah. In the images, I wouldn't have guessed anything was grogged, and I was kind of curious. Yeah, if you were maybe just
Well, I like
obviously
to,
you're slipping over it, so you're
yeah, I'm spraying. I work a lot with an air gun, with a spray gun
yeah, spray gun. Yeah,
and a compressor to get that color, to get the gradients, and also to just keep layering and have a nice smooth finish.
yeah. Um, I guess last kind of general question is like, with everything, well, some of it in the context of the world, but um, what with everything going on, what do you have? What are you working on now, and kind of what are some of your upcoming goals? Obviously, with Espèce Claire, that sounds like a super exciting, and you might have said it earlier, but I just wanted to call out how long have you had that space?
About 3.5 years only.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
and
yeah, so you're still just
doubled in size in those 3 years. So
yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Well, projects right now, I would say. Well, I spend about half my time working on the Espace Clair and
yeah,
making it work.
facilitating it. Yeah,
Yeah, bringing people in, making connections. Um, we're doing a couple art science projects right now, so getting scientists to come in, getting coming up with ideas for artisans to be able to collaborate on different projects. And I'm also a member of the FAT, which is the Fédération des Artisans d'Art de Toulouse, so the Federation of Artisans of Toulouse. And so we're doing a lot of, we created the group to kind of become more visible and on the scene in Toulouse, and to have a bit more oomph in our negotiations with local government and getting exhibits going and other projects. So there's a lot of networking going on, and a lot of just hanging out with people and coming up with ideas.
yeah.
And then, well, right now I'm talking to you from Paris because I've come up here for a wonderful show, which is 1,000 Vases. And so that's a lovely initiative that was created by Meet My Project. And so it's 1,000 vases, and I usually don't do useful things, and so making vases is an interesting project for me. I usually just sculpt completely useless sculptures,
Sure, sure.
but this is a wonderful. So I'm showing 3 vases this week in their show,
Cool.
and a lot of we call them salons in France. They're like big
Hmm.
conventions, like in Sika.
Okay.
They've been cancelled this year, so we're just
Yeah.
watching them go down one by one and putting
Are
on
they
virtual versions. But
okay? That's what I was just gonna ask. So they're so it is similar to, I'm assuming we're all kind of in the same boat. Everything's been transitioning towards virtual and all the problem solving associated with that, or
yeah, and it's hard because when we work with matter, we really want to be able to see up close and touch,
I
and just
know.
having things online is not not perfect. But anyway, it's a good compromise, I think, and it's nice to see that people are really working hard to get our work out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to continue doing these. I'd like to call this out too as well. These sort of clay chats for that reason, and I want to continue to. I want to have future conversations with you. My goal is with this project is to keep sort of these touch points throughout the year. So one of the silver linings that I believe has come out of this pandemic and this virtual sort of living that we're doing is typically as a gallery, I would only be able to rotate a certain number of artists a year through the physical space. And we're still doing that. We're still documenting the shows, even though people aren't coming in. And it's great to have physical documentation of the show. But this has opened up this awesome opportunity to work with more people and kind of really expand out the breadth of what we do. Um, but rather than just work with somebody once, and we're going back to that physical model of like it would take a few years to cycle back around typically before we would show the same artist's work again. And you're planning so far out and all these other things. So our goal is like, I would love to, follow up and say, even 3 to 6 months and do another event like this with you so that we kind of continue to see, um, you, you know, your evolution, your progress, what's new,
Mhm.
and that it's not just this one, really deep splash, but it's a series of connecting, and
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah,
So that's what
yeah.
I'm
Well,
I'm
it's
hoping.
wonderful to have this chance to be able to work with you for all the way from France
Yeah,
and create this connection. So yeah, there are a lot of really good things coming out of the virtual world right now.
yeah, yeah. Because this would have been really tricky to do in the physical, so or
Mhm.
probably impossible.
Yeah.
So this is the blessing of that.
Yeah.
Um, well, let's leave it here. I'm so grateful that you were able to share kind of and introduce yourself to us and to the audience. And um, as I said, I look forward to doing more of this with you. So as after this show, I want to keep in touch with kind of what you're doing and how we can continue to kind of grow a relationship and even if it's transatlantic, um, kind of figure out how to keep working together
Yeah,
and sharing ideas.
that would
So
be great.
yeah.
Mm.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you so much for your
Thank you.
time. I look forward to chatting with you again soon. And of course, if you're in Portland um, when non-COVID times come,
Hopefully very soon.
we look forward to showing you around the space.
Wonderful. Thank you,
All
Brett.
right. All
Yeah.
right.
All
Thank you,
right.
Kartini. We'll
Have a
see you
nice
soon.
evening.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.